we go. Then we're going to post it to Patreon. Today is not Sunday. Today is Friday. Let's see here. Share this one. And then we got TikTok. You guys have any questions, you can ask them at any time. And if I know the answer, I will give it. Constitution. YouTube. What's up, everybody? What states are we from? What states? What's up, everybody? What states are we from? Let's see. What's up, everybody? California's in the house. Let's go. Mic check. Let's get a little organized. All right, we'll go to that later. Boom. And then we'll boom, boom. But we're not actually going to put that there. We're going to put that there. Then we got the Constitution. All right. Let's see. Comments. So we're going to get YouTube up. We got TikTok up. Any questions? Let's see here. Got one watching, which is me. Put the comment section down here. What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up, Denise? What's up? That's not what I meant to do. Yep, shouldn't have did that. Perfect. Ooh, didn't know I could do that. I can have 4 screens up on my. This is so unnecessary, important, but that is cool. All right. That's not what I need at all, though. All right. What's up, everybody? California's in the house. They really don't be showing my stuff. Perfect. There we go. Let's see here. Jurisdiction. All right. What's up, everybody? Ooh, let me get some law dictionaries up. Any questions? Any questions? What's up, everybody? There we go. What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? This mic sounds terrible. I think it's the two mics together. I don't know. Maybe we're not supposed to be bouncing off each other. Like maybe it's the. Let me see if I can hear it. Sounds a lot like air. Even right now, this is the mic. Sounds windy. Oh, that's good. The phone was probably on. Maybe now. What about now? What about now? All right, because I turned the mic down turn the volume down on my phone. See my tablet. What's up, everybody? It's the ceiling fan. It could be the ceiling fan. Give me a second. I'll turn it off. I want to see how it sounds on the internet. How many Y's do I have in my name? 3 Y's. All right, there we go. There we go. Mic check, mic check, mic check, check, mic check. It sounds better now. Now it's working. Yeah, there we go. Let me turn that off. All right. Technology, technology. Oh, I can't do that. Now you'll just hear my computer cooking like a frying pan. What's up, everybody? What states are we from? What states? What states? Any questions? Any questions? Missouri's in the house. Let's go. Missouri. What is the law of Missouri? I thought I found the Missouri Supreme Court books, but I don't think I did actually. What other states we got? What other states? Okay, Missouri and Pennsylvania. All right. Georgia. YouTube. Is anybody on YouTube? Nope. Nobody's on YouTube. I don't know about YouTube. Any questions? Any questions? We're not talking about anything today. We're talking about the same stuff we talk about every day. I don't have anything specific prepared today. Just to get on and see. I see scammers. They talk about all type of stuff all day. Want to see what we was going to talk about today. They get all type of engagement. I'm not jealous or hating. I'm just observation. Yeah, I seen what's that dude's name? I think his name is Yusuf L. He get all type of people on his stuff. He get to talk about whatever. But if you tell the truth, that'd be great. Oh, here we go. Let's do the timeline of the Second Amendment. All right. So they say, I forgot what book I got this from, but the timeline starts. Can we talk about it's only for 542 people in Congress stopping us from getting restitution? What state do you live in? You live in New York. Restitution for what? What are you needing restitution for? Restitution. Let's look up what the word restitution means. Misclassification and reclassification. You were born in New York? Oh, well, what are they reclassifying you as? There we go. That's something I can go to. I think it was Pennsylvania or Massachusetts. Let's go to was it Massachusetts? Let's see here. Yeah, independent state sovereignty. So, and then we'll go to Maryland. Maryland's got a really good book. Actually, we'll go to Maryland first. Maryland books on Maryland. I'm trying to think of where it is. I don't remember exactly where it was at, but maybe this is. I have a book. See if I can find it real quick. That says that when the country started, nobody called themselves American. Maybe it's in Massachusetts. It's one of those states northeast. They said they called themselves based on what state they were born in, because the state that they were born in and ultimately at that time would live in, that was their nationality. They said they didn't call themselves uh, Americans. They called themselves New Jerseyans. They called themselves Marylanders because they believed that that was who they were, that their nationality was their states. There was no such thing as black and white. And I got a bunch of cases that say, okay, well, even at the beginning of the country, even as early as the Articles of Confederation, which is 1777, there were black people and white people that their nationality was their state. So I don't understand what classification we are needing. You said I'm a state national now. If you were born in New York, you are a New Yorker. That's it. You were born in Rochester. You were born in one of the 5 boroughs. You were born in, Buffalo. You were born in Schenectady or Vestal or Binghamton or Elmira. Okay, well, you're a New Yorker. That's it. That's just what you are. Sorry. It's just where you were born. That's what a national means. You can't become a national. Just like you can't become Chinese. You can't become German. You just have to be born somewhere. That's it. You don't get to choose it. It's just where you were born. So I don't understand what you're needing restitution for. Restitution. RES. What is restitution? That's gotta be a commercial term. REVRETQRS. Rests to retain. He said he may be ahead of my time. That's hilarious that he thinks that you can become a state national, that you can't become German tomorrow. There's no pieces of paper that you can do that. He said he was misclassified as something by somebody in Congress, but somebody who was born in New York doesn't know the law of New York, and that what happens in Congress doesn't apply in New York because New York is its own nation. So there's nothing that I would be needing to uh, be behind the times on because everything I needed to know was in history. Everything I needed to learn started on July 4th, 1776. The end. On July 4th, 1776, the people that were in the 13 colonies that became states, those places became nationals or became nations. The only people that became nationals were on July 4th, 1776. And they denounced the British crown and their allegiance to it. And they did that by strapping up, not by filling out pieces of paper. And there was no misclassification. They were clearly understood when red coats started dropping on the ground that no pieces of paper were needed. They didn't need you to understand them. They didn't have to go to the crown to get their answers. They said they had rights that were given to them by God. And as a result, the original 13 colonies said we declare independence and are absolved of all allegiance to any fictitious foreign corporation. So there's nothing that I need to be behind on or that you think you're ahead on if it can be solved on a piece of paper. They wrote one piece of paper called the Declaration of Independence, and for the next 13 years, they got to it. They said, "No, we wrote a paper already. We're good." So no, we're not gonna talk about how we don't Congress don't do nothing for us. Congress doesn't apply to New York. What happens in Congress is of ill it tell you, Article 1, I got the Constitution right here in my face. You said, talk about how the 584 people of Congress, the legislation of Congress only applies in the 10-mile square. Who is we? See, there we go with that we stuff. Louisiana must be here 'cause, we must be speaking French. There's no we. We don't live by administrative policy. You may be living by administrative policies, but the law of New York is clear. The Common Law of England that was established on April 19th, 1775 continues to be the law of New York. And that common law, they didn't do no administrative principles or administrative policies. They lived according to the law of the land. Yeah, restitution. Yeah, I know I'm not crazy. This is the early dictionary that is attributed to the Constitution of the United States, and the word restitution's not in there. So I don't know what you're getting this restitution from. That's a commercial term. You participate in commercialism and administrative policies on your own volition. It got nothing to do with we, especially if it was never valid. Article 1, Section 10. I don't remember what's the article. To exercise Section 8, the Congress shall have the power to exercise exclusive legislation. They're not talking to New York. They're talking to themselves. New York has a legislator before the Civil War. But Congress and all the 584 people that you think are there exercise exclusive administrative policies in all cases whatsoever over such district. And that exclusive legislation or that exclusive administrative policy does not exceed the 10 mile square of such district. So if you're participating in administrative policies and somebody needs to represent you, restitution is not in the earliest John Bouvier Law Dictionary. There's only one dictionary attributed to the United States Constitution. Yeah, there's a difference between beating cases and cases can't be created on you. Everybody loved telling me once they were in court. Okay, there's a difference between people who can't get and people who have to beat cases because some people don't end up in court. Some people don't have cases created. Some of them they can't find them on the computer, so they got to let them go when they're. You told me you put yourself on. You said you were born in New York. Okay, well, you got homework to do because New York's one of the original 13 states. They declared independence and absolved all allegiance from the British Crown. So if you're participating in administrative policies, that's your fault. You need to start learning New York law because the law of New York is the common law of England, not administrative policies. Actually, where did I read it? The Federalist Papers. Watch this. Federalist Papers number 39. I read it today. Each state, in ratifying the Constitution, is considered a sovereign body, independent of all others, and only to be bound by its own voluntary act. In this relation, this new Constitution of 1787, if established, will be a federal and not a national constitution. They said they're not talking to you. That constitution is never talking to you if you live in one of the 50 states. They said it was never talking to you. It said it was a federal, not a national. See, when the country started, they called it the general government. They didn't call it a federal government because federal would imply that they're talking to themselves. General would apply that they're speaking all over the union. That Constitution is not taught. People tell me all the time, "I got constitutional rights, brother." No, you don't. Not if you were born in Vermont. Not if you were born in Ohio. Not if you were in Michigan. You don't. Not if you're in Texas or Mississippi. Sorry. There's no such thing as constitutional rights if you're not in the District of Columbia or you're not on a military base, not being employed by the government. Puerto Rico got constitutional rights. Guam got constitutional rights. What else? The Virgin Islands, they got constitutional rights. But if you live in one of the original 13 or the other 37, 38, whatever, okay, well, you have the common law of England, which the Supreme Court of Tennessee and the Supreme Court of Florida says come from the scriptures. You may have God-given rights. You may have rights that the Creator has given to you, as explained in the Declaration of Independence. You don't have constitutional rights. There's no such thing. If they can give them to you through the Constitution, oh, well, then you never had them. Because whoever gives you the thing can take it away. Federalist Papers number 39 by James Madison. They said it is a federal constitution. It is not a national constitution. It does not apply all over the union. I explained it the other day. The United States Constitution is for international things. They set up a corporation to have international relationships because at the time, the original 13 states, the original 13 states, uh, gave up international powers. That's why Mississippi can't go to war with Russia, or New York can't go to war with another country or whatever. They gave that power to the federal corporation. So where do treaties fit in this? Well, you don't have your treaty is the United States Constitution. Article 4, Section 4 says that they are to guarantee every state in the union a republican form of government. That's your treaty. That part right there, Article 4 of the Constitution. That was you. The You're from New York, bro. You don't have no international treaties. That ain't talking. I swear that stuff is so about them. Article 4, Section 4. That part of the Constitution applies to you. Yep, you're in New York? Yep, okay. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state. The end. That's it. That's what see, we love talking about other things, but we ain't talked about the New York Constitution. This dude's from New York, and we don't talk about New York things. New York is a sovereign nation. Louisiana, sovereign nation. It's in the Constitution. I read this by myself. Louisiana's Constitution, I read it. I found it in a Supreme Court case, and I thought the judge was just reading, like, just giving her his or her opinion on what they thought they were explaining. That judge was quoting verbatim the Louisiana Constitution. I read the Louisiana Constitution yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, I've read this before. I got the case on this." Well, it didn't come from the case. It came from the Louisiana Constitution. Let me go to it. Louisiana, New York. Okay, yeah, we're not gonna do this. New York, Louisiana. New York said, very first thing I ever found out about New York. They said we must not forget. The Supreme Court of New York said we must not forget the royal prerogatives were not extinguished, but merely transferred to the people. They said the kingly rights were divided among the people as a whole. In 1779, the New York legislature stated that all royal rights shall be vested in the people of the state, in whom the sovereignty are and were united and vested. And he want to talk about treaties in the United States Constitution. This dude is literally a king, literally treated as the king of England. And you want to talk about international commercial treaties. You need to focus on New York. You could be the smartest dude in New York, New York. If I was born in New York, I wouldn't know how to knowing this stuff. They said New York is a sovereign state and the original owner of all the land within her limits. They said she has the sovereign and only right to make laws related to that land. That's not actually the case I wanted to know. I wanted to read. I got one that says the people of New York are kings. There we go. The Supreme Court of New York said the people of this state as successors of its former sovereign. Well, who's the former sovereign of New York? King George III. I haven't got on Louisiana. I'm gonna read Louisiana next. They said the poorest dude in New York is on equal ground with the King of England at 1776. This has nothing to do with treaties. If you were born in New York, I'm just speaking as if you were in your own state. Like, just because 'cause I'm using New York, just they said the people of this state. What people? New York. This is the New York Supreme Court. Said as successors of its former sovereign are entitled to all the rights which formerly belonged to the King of England. They said they may exercise all powers which previous to the revolution could have only been exercised by the king alone. And y'all want to talk about commercialism and administrative properties? No. They said by the common law, the king is parens patriae on the soil under all the waters of navigable rivers and of the sea where the tide regularly ebbs and flows. Yeah, we're not supposed to be filling out pieces of paper. Louisiana. Where's the Louisiana at? Louisiana said, let me pull up the Louisiana Constitution. There we go. Declaration of Rights. Where was it? I got one called Due Process of Law. Okay, well, where'd they get that from? They only get that from one place. Common Law of England. I thought Louisiana was founded on the French law. Nope, not here. State sovereignty. Article or section 26. All right. This is section 26 of the Louisiana Constitution. Watch this. I read in yeah, this was in 2014. I thought I had found something brand new. I've been reading it all over the internet. They said the state has not waived its sovereign immunity. Or let me say this again. The state, this is the Supreme Court of Louisiana, said that the state has not waived its sovereignty within the federal system. They said the people of this state have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free and sovereign state, and do and forever hereafter shall exercise and enjoy every power, jurisdiction, and right pertaining thereto, which is not or may not hereafter be by them expressly delegated to the United States. They said we never gave this to the federal government. Louisiana is its own thing. And then you go to the Louisiana Constitution, section 26, I guess. And it says the people of this state have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free and sovereign state. And everything else I just said. And they exercise and enjoy every power, right pertaining thereto, which is not or may not hereafter be given to the United States. So have you been giving things to the United States? That's the question. Actually, I have another book. I have a Louisiana law book that says they adopted, you see, Louisiana. Yeah, Louisiana law books. It says that Louisiana borrowed sovereign immunity from the common law and applied it to Louisiana. You would think Louisiana only does French stuff. No, Louisiana cannot go beyond the boundaries of the federal constitution. That's what Article 4, Section 4 of the federal constitution is about, telling us that the states are sovereign. The word Republican form of government doesn't mean that Donald Trump is that it doesn't mean anything about the federal system. A Republican form of government is where the sovereignty is in the people of the states. So that's your treaty, Article 4, Section 4, or Article 4 of the Constitution. So, okay, that gives me permission to just focus on New York and learn New York law and study the New York Constitution and the history of New York, which goes all the way back to the Netherlands. I think the Netherlands and who else? It was like the Netherlands and the Dutch. I don't know. It was 2 nations that were here, and then the English showed up and took it over. But you got the Netherlands. I can't find it. So, yeah, you got a lot of homework to do. Yeah, I go to the law library and look up the New York practice, and I will learn everything in every one of those books. Because they said, "You're the kings." I read it almost every time I'm on here. When you talk about New York, they got the Supreme Court of New York said the people of New York are the kings. They said the people of New York are not bound by a statute unless their name is in it. They said, as in England, the king is not bound by a statute. And they said the people are the king. They say it again. They cite the case I read earlier. They said the people have succeeded to the rights of the King of England and therefore are not bound by general words in a statute. And they said they're not bound by any general words in the statute when any right or interest might be taken from it. Yeah, so we're not going to study commercialism. We're going to study the common law of England because they said they got this thing from a doctrine called sovereign immunity. Okay, well, sovereign immunity is a common law principle that says that the king cannot be bound and the king can do no wrong in his own land as long as there was no injured party. Right? So these things have significance. We don't just yap and say, "Hey, no injured party, so they can't do." No, they're literally not supposed to be doing anything if there is no injured party. Why? Because the king is not bound by fake laws in a statute. What else? What other states? Texas. Somebody said, "What about Texas?" Yep. Texas Constitution. Let's go to it. All this stuff, you could start with your state constitution. Texas Constitution. Yep, there we go. Texas Constitution. Article 1, Section 1 of the Texas Constitution. Texas is a free and independent state. The end. Close the book. That's it. They got one thing. I don't know what part. I got it on a Supreme Court case. I don't know what article it is. Let me go to Texas on here. Texas. The Republic of Texas. Where does it go? This is the Supreme. Well, this is a. I think it's the Supreme Court of Texas, but it says Texas has retained its sovereignty and it does not allow private suits against it in its own courts. What does that mean? Okay, unless you have consented, you are not supposed to be brought in the court. What I really want to say is, if you haven't consented, you can't be brought into their courts or into your courts. Why? Because Texas has retained its sovereignty. If you were born in Texas, you are a Texan. Just like if somebody was born in New York, they are a New Yorker. Are you bound by the Constitution of your state? No, you're only bound by the laws of God. Now, if they put the laws of God in the Constitution and you break one of those natural laws of God, then you're subject, right? We don't live life with no government, not like that. But Texas has a law. The Constitution is for the government. All right. So you're studying the Constitution to know what the government can and can't do. The Constitution virtually has nothing to do with you. But Texas has a law, and it's called the Common Law of England. And if you want to learn the law, you got to go study the Common Law of England. Why? Because the law of Texas is the Common Law of England, and you can't interpret the Texas Constitution without going to the Common Law of England. So when you go to the Bill of Rights, you're going to study and trace all those back to the Common Law of England because that's where they all come from. So they said in another case, uh, they said the Texas government doesn't have sovereign power. They said the people of Texas have the sovereign power. Your nationality is determined by where you were born. The end. So you could have been born in Texas, but now live in Idaho. Okay, well, because we're a union, then as I read earlier in the federal constitution, okay, well, now I can't find it. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts and records and judicial proceedings of every other state. Well, if you were born in Germany on a military base, that is different. So you should have started with that. You should have started with that. All right. Now it is based on you being naturalized. Yeah, not everything. That's why these attorneys they be like, generally, okay, I get it. I get it. Generally, this is true. All right, I get it. All right, so because you were born on a military base, your nationality is the United States. But by virtue of your parents, hopefully one of your I'm assuming one of your parents was born in one of the 50 states. Okay, well, nationality is based on Okay, so you were born to two American parents. Okay, boom, there you go. So by virtue of that, you get access to the land, right? They call it just solely. That's the common law doctrine. JUS space solely, SOLI, right? So, if you, which I'm sure you do, have the ability to get an American passport, okay, that's either because you were naturalized, meaning you may have been born somewhere else, but you confer nationality through naturalization, right? Okay, well, that just means you get access to the land of your parents by virtue of being of your parents, especially if you maybe happen to be born in the service of the country to in somewhere else, right? But yeah, so like an attorney will say, generally, okay, I get it. All right. Um, but here, so yes, where you are domiciled, that is another topic of law. That is equally true depending uh on the situation. So yes, you could either be born in one of the 50 states, or depending on the issue that you may be facing, the law depends on where you are domiciled, right? So if you are domiciled in the District of Columbia, primarily the common law of England does not apply to you, right? Domicile and not resident. Resident means doing business as. That's literally what the word means. So we don't use that word resident, even if me and you use it in a different context. When we're talking law, words mean things. So domicile, everything as it relates to whose law applies to who is if you are domiciled in one of the 50 states, then the law of that land applies 1000%. And if somebody's trying to say another type of law applies. Okay, that's why I read earlier. Somebody was talking about the public acts in Congress. Okay, well, Article 1, Section 9 says that they only exercise exclusive legislation over such district, not over Maryland, not over Kentucky, not over Mississippi. Mississippi has a law. Texas has a law. Kentucky has a law. New York has a law. Why? Well, otherwise, we don't need Mississippi flags and Kentucky flags and Maryland flags and New York flags, which people don't wave them no way. But uh, here we go. This is the Supreme Court of Texas. They said the people are sovereign and possess all the powers of sovereignty. What do you mean all of them? All of them. What do you mean? That New York said when on 1776, they said they were the successors of the crown. You could be the poorest dude in New York at that time, and magically you're a king, just like that. That means that don't mean you get to do whatever you want. It means now you take personal responsibility over your own life, just like that. That's it. That's true. I'm not saying everywhere, but primarily when you travel, you'll only see federal flags. Okay, well, technically federal flags are only for federal buildings. You have a flag. You have a New York flag. You have a Tennessee flag. And oh, I shouldn't have did that. Pennsylvania has a flag. I have a picture of the Pennsylvania flag. I think it is I-70 or I-90 leaving Pittsburgh. They got a big Pennsylvania flag uh, on that interstate. Why? Because Pennsylvania is a nation. Where'd they get those flags from? You know where they got those flags from? Those flags weren't there at the beginning of the country. At the Civil War, all those states represented the what do they call it? A coat of arms for their nation, called whatever state. And as a result, they flew those flags afterwards. So your state is a nation. We're reading Texas. The people of Texas are sovereign and possess all the powers of sovereignty. They said the faith of the people of Texas stands pledged to the preservation of a Republican form of government. Oh, here we go. There's some commentary book. I actually can't find that book. I've tried to find it, but it's a commentary on the Texas Constitution, and they said based on Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution. Let me see this. Yeah. They say the people, based on Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, they said the people have sovereign rights and privileges that are beyond the power of government. That's a nasty sentence. They said it's based on the commentary of the Texas Constitution from the 90s. That's a judge cited that. I can't find that book nowhere. They took that book off the shelf, buddy. They burned that thing. They said, "Don't let them get this, boy. They ain't gonna know how to act in Texas, boy." I can't find no book. I'll pay whatever for that book. I can't find it. Uh, what else? Somebody said Ohio. Ohio. Y'all seen the Ohio flag? Ohio got a different flag than everybody. They don't even have like a regular rectangle flag. They got like a triangle type of looking flag. Why? Because Ohio get to do its own thing. Ohio mind its own business. I don't have much on Ohio. Sorry. I got the common law of England is the law of is the law of Ohio. That's what I got. Sorry, Ohio. They said the common law of England is the rule of decision in all the courts of this state, even though they don't do it. Yep. Florida, yep. I never thought that's why the US flag is in the building and not the state flags. It depends on where you go. I don't know wherever you go. But we're not supposed to be waving state or federal flags. Technically, like somebody said West Virginia. Okay, well, West Virginia, that West Virginia flag is an American flag. We don't think of it like that, though. The California flag is an American flag. You seen the Arizona flag? The Arizona flag look cool. I think it's the coolest looking flag. Okay, well, that's an American flag. So we have our own American flags, right? And I'm not some separatist. I'm just saying, like, we can get our answer solved by paying attention not to what they put on TV and not what they put in movies and TV shows and the news, by doing the homework, reading our state's constitution, studying our Bill of Rights, sharing it with people. Don't be believing random people on the internet, me included. I'm sure I've been wrong about something. You know what I mean? But when we understand that the common law of England is the real law of the states, that gives us an incredible power. Why? Because we're supposed to get a trial by jury in every case in the states. Federally, that's a different issue, which is another problem. It's still a different issue. But in the states, okay, well, we're getting a jury. We're all in community. We all know each other, and we're not letting any case go through where there is an injured party. Point blank. Period. We don't care what they got to say about it. Why? Because that common law, the jury were the judges of the law. You go to the Illinois Constitution, they say it. They say the jury are the judges of the law. You go to the Indiana Constitution, the jury are the judges of the law and of the facts. Some attorney tried to debate me. He said, "No, the judge gets to determine what the law." Okay, well, then is he disobeying the Illinois Constitution? Yep, sound like he is. Yep, because the Maryland Constitution say the same thing. The jury are the judges of the law. So it look like these judges are breaking the law then. And somebody need to be put in prison for breaking the law. Because the judge gets to determine what the law is, and the jury determines the fact. Yeah, you would love for that to be true. That means y'all can keep disobeying the law and taking away people's rights. You understand that? There's 3 branches of government, federally and in your state, right? Okay, only the legislator can make law, and they can't make laws that take away rights. Why? Because the Common Law of England says due process, you're not allowed to write things that take away people's life, the people that you're supposed to protect, life, liberty, and property. And so when some attorney says, "Oh, well, the judge determines the law," he hasn't been given power by the state constitution to determine the law. The law's already been determined. It's called the Common Law of England, and it says that the jury are the judges of the law, not a guy in a black robe. He's been given no power to determine the law. His job is to get you before the jury. He's a referee. That's it. And people tell me all the time, "Well, the governor did this or the president made an executive order." Okay, well, they haven't been given executive order powers by the Constitution, state or federal. So a president can't make law, a governor can't make law. Oh, snap. A bug it is. Ah. The feds, they sent ladybugs in here. The feds are on attack. I don't know what that was. Uh, but the governor can't make law. You remember during, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but during COVID, the governor and whoever said, "Oh, you gotta do this. You gotta do you what? You don't make law. You don't have powers to make law. You don't get to tell people what to do. That's not your job. Your job is to do what you're told in the state constitution. Your job is protection. The end. You don't get to order people around. See, we're so far behind, y'all, and I'm nobody's judge. I'm telling you, I'm not. I'm just saying, people don't get to tell you what to do. I know it sounds crazy, but, like, people don't just get to order you around. I don't know a nicer way to say that. What, what it was the Supreme Court of North Carolina. The Supreme Court of North Carolina said, "You're independent of all the laws." Let me see if I can find it. That was a ladybug. I don't know if that's good luck or bad luck or the Supreme Court of North Carolina. I feel like none of these got it. But it's a famous case. Somebody know that case. Uh, it's a pretty popular case, but it says that you're independent of all the laws. Let me see. No, it's like a super popular case. People cite it all the time. Let me see if I can. If I don't get the sentence right, it ain't gonna let me. Independent of law. Boom. Look at that. Supreme Court of North Carolina said that every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. Okay, what's that? Don't put your hands on nobody. Don't take nothing that don't belong to you, and don't damage nobody else's stuff. Those are the ones that are prescribed by nature. Every man is independent of all laws. All of them? All of them, except those prescribed by nature. He said God said things in certain fixations and orders that you cannot go beyond the boundaries of. If you do, you're gonna wish a government was there to help you, right? They said he is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. Oh, that's a nasty one. What institutions? The ones we see around us called the state of or the United States. Yeah, those are institutions formed by fellow men. What about the Constitution being suspended? The Constitution can't be suspended without them renaming the country. There's no such thing as the Constitution being suspended. I mean, outside of brute military force, the Constitution can't be suspended. But we understand this. He said, "Look it up." Like I ain't, like I don't have 1,000 law books. Here we go. How you know a Fed gonna be creeping in? You said, "Oh, well, what about the suspension of the Constitution?" The Constitution can't be suspended. I'm so sorry. Everybody, here we go. Let's go to the Constitution. Look it up. Go to Google because Google tells us everything right. Mhm. That sounds good if you can't prove them wrong. That's how attorneys win. They know we can't prove it. Most of us can't prove things. You gonna have a problem when I get up in there. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Ooh, Ohio. I forgot to tag this in Ohio. Congressional records. Congressional records. Congressional records can't alter the Constitution, sweetie. I found it. Let me close the tab. I got too many tabs open. Too many tabs. Sorry, Louise. Let's close the tabs, everybody. And I probably closed the one. No, I got it. I got it. All right, everybody. All right, class. Here we go. Uh, the effect of public emergency. An emergency cannot create power, and no emergency justifies the violation of any provision in the United States Constitution or state constitutions. Don't worry, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. No emergency justifies the violation of any of the provisions in the United States Constitution. They said the principles already stated with reference to the exercise of powers during emergencies and relation thereto of the provision of the United States Constitution are equally applicable to state constitutions. And the Supreme Court of Ohio said that there is no provision, and the Supreme Court of Alabama said there is no provision for violating the Constitution in an emergency. A Senate report cannot suspend the Constitution. Even if they write, oh, we suspended the Constitution, you can't do it. See, what they write on fake pieces of paper is not law. The law's already been established. They said, who is this? Nebraska. Nebraska said, can we grab the mic? Nebraska said this so-called state police power is not superior to constitutions. They said, so far as emergency by the exercise of police power authorizing what otherwise would be opposed. They said emergency doesn't create power. Emergency doesn't increase granted power or remove or diminish restrictions on granted power. He said the Constitution was adopted in a period of grave emergency. They said they are not altered by emergency. They said they had a crazy debt. People said, oh, they went bankrupt. They went bankrupt in 1787. That's why they created the Constitution in a grave emergency. So no emergency can alter or suspend the Constitution. This is Nebraska. Look at this. Alabama said emergencies do not authorize the suspension of the Constitution guarantees. Ohio said it is sufficient to say that, talking about the Ohio Constitution, that all laws, not some laws, shall have uniform operation. There is no provision for violating the Constitution. Who is this? This is the federal Supreme Court. They said after the Civil War, they said in the emergency of times, the Constitution goes no further. That it does not say after a writ of habeas corpus is denied that he shall be tried otherwise than by the courts of common law. They said if this had intended this result, then the framers of the Constitution are not stupid. They could have wrote that in there. They said they did not. They said the illustrious men who framed the Constitution were guarding the foundations of civil liberty against the abuses of unlimited power. The actual Senate report does not change the Constitution, and it gets suspended. They said against abuses of unlimited power. They said they were full of wisdom and lessons of history informed them that an impartial jury was the only sure way to protect the citizen against oppression and wrong, and the rest to remain forever inviolate or inviolable. It means you can't change it. It is insisted that the safety of the country in time of war demands that this broad claim for martial law shall be sustained. Happily, it is not so. They said this after the Civil War. Who is this? This is Ohio. They said the powers of the legislator are defined and limited. So even if they think they can write whatever they want, it's limited. It does have no effect. It may have effect on the ignorant, which that is true. That's the reality that we're living in. But those limits may not be mistaken or forgotten. It is a proposition too plain to be contested that the Constitution controls any legislative act repugnant to it. So read the actual Senate report that was actually repugnant to the Constitution to begin with. Okay, we won't be doing that, but thanks. That the legislator may alter the Constitution by an ordinary act. Look, they say it. They address all these things. They say, yeah, we've already went over this stuff. They said between the alternatives, there is no middle ground. The Constitution is the superior paramount law. They say it again. Who is this? This is the feds. Emergency does not create power. Who is this? Feds. The powers of the government are limited by constitutional grants. They have not been granted that power in 1787. That's right. Even in 2026, if they have not gave you that power, you don't have it. I'm sorry. And that applies to a lot of stuff, y'all. You'd be amazed. That Constitution is a nasty document. It's nasty, nasty, nasty. I read it all the time. You cannot interpret that Constitution without reference to the common law. You cannot define the words or phrases in the Constitution without going to the law of England. You just can't. So anybody who ignores, disregards, don't talk about that common law of England, they're either incredibly ignorant or they're incredibly against you. No, a constitutional amendment is not valid if it didn't go through the procedures listed in the Common Law of England. The Common Law of England is the actual law. Just like they say, okay, well, the 16th Amendment they have the power to tax everywhere. Okay, well, they've never been given the power to do anything everywhere. They can't tax Germany, can they? No, they can't. Why? They don't have the power to. Right? Okay, well, they can't tax Mississippi. Why? Because Mississippi is sovereign. The million Supreme Court cases say, okay, well, it's an excise tax. It means you can only tax things in relation to the federal government. And the Supreme Court of Alabama said healthcare, where the supposed Social Security number comes from, is not mentioned in the federal Constitution. What about 1930? But again, you can name whatever executive order, legislative act you think exists, applies. It cannot go beyond the boundaries of the intention of the federal constitution. Exactly. So even if they make a new amendment tomorrow, well, it can't mean something new that it did not mean to the framers of the Constitution. They come out with a brand new amendment. I think the last amendment may have been in the 90s. Okay, well, whatever they put in that amendment can't mean something other than what it meant in to the people who wanted the common law of England to be. Nope, it wasn't violated with the creation of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is for federal things. That we missed this state sovereignty thing. Again, the Constitution is not talking to us; it's talking to them. So, what does it say? No state. This is Article 1, Section 10. No state, actually, is it? Yeah. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit. That's all these scammers talk about on the internet. About negotiable instruments, promissory notes, commercialism, equity. Yeah, he's not been given any of those powers in the states. So, they said, okay, the states can't do these things. These are only for federal things, which doesn't have anything to do with us. We don't live in DC. We don't work for DC. They said no state shall coin money, get bills of credit, or make anything but gold and silver coin a tender and payment of debt. So if we don't have no gold and silver, I think I talked about this yesterday. I went over gold and silver yesterday. Okay, well that's a we problem. Because what does the 10th Amendment say? They said whatever hasn't been given to the feds and to the states is left to the people. Okay, well, why do they have gold and silver in the Constitution? Well, because at common law, that was the money. And what's the law of the states? What's the law of Ohio? What's the law of Texas? What's the law of Nebraska? I forgot. Bill of Rights. Yeah, whatever hasn't been given to the feds or to the states is our responsibility. And since the Civil War, I got bad news for you. We've been on our own. What about new statutes and codes? All statutes and codes are, well, it depends on what the statute and code is about. But no statute and code can take away rights, and it can't be presumed to take away rights before the jury, who are the lawful judges of the state, have heard about the issue. But equally, we're not supposed to be submitting to statutes. So, but how does something get nullified? Things can get nullified every day when you bring it before a jury and you explain the law and the facts to them, and then they judge you in the facts. They said we could be nullifying every day. Every case is different. We we and me too, I'm not special. We've had a commercial mindset for a long time because these scammers on the internet taught us, oh well, oh, equity and commercialism and paperwork is how you get things done. Well, at common law, when you learn that the real law is the common law, well, you learn that, well, due process and the common law of England and all these ancient common law principles deal with each individual circumstance. So people say, well, what about this issue? Well, I don't know all the facts surrounding that issue. You got to study the law and then present that to the jury. The jury will make the decision on that each on individual circumstance. And it took me a while to get that in my head because I'm like, "Oh, well, every time we can just do this." Not every time. We can't control the future. We don't know everything. We don't know every circumstance. You may let something out that would have been crucial for the jury to know. They didn't know it. And so they made the decision based on the information that was given to them, right? Because people say all the time, well, sometimes I get a jury and they're corrupt. That's true. You're right. We don't control everything. I mean, in my opinion, it's still better than going before a guy in a black robe. He's definitely paid to rule against you. He is not your friend. At least you'll find it. See, if on a jury, if one guy disagrees with everybody else, okay, well, you get a hung jury just like that. But that one guy in a black robe is definitely against you. He is not your friend. He don't care nothing about you. He trying to get that bread and go to Ruth Chris. He don't care nothing about you. Go to an island this weekend. All right. He said, I need a plea, and then I will determine the issue 3 months later while you sit in jail. Right? I don't care nothing about you. So that's why this stuff is important. I forgot what I was talking about. But yeah, statutes and codes. Yep, statutes and codes can't be presumed to take away rights. It's up to us to make statutes and codes. We don't make statutes and codes. Only corporations make statutes and codes. Statutes and codes are for the operation of the corporation. They're technically not talking to the people. They're talking to themselves. And that sounds weird until you get it. Like they're really not talking to us. And they're great liars, so they can say it better than I can explain. They'll say, "Oh, no, 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 it applies to all residents that are in the state of North Carolina." No, everything we write it is against the law for residents and citizens of the United States to yeah, they'll put it on the news and say all these sovereign citizens think they don't have to obey laws, right? But we don't make statutes and codes. We have a law, the common law of England. And I'm no scholar, but I've compared all the laws that types of law, and the common law is the best one. That's the best one we got. The Supreme Court of Tennessee, the Supreme Court of Florida said it comes from the scriptures. I've been reading the scriptures a while. I think it's the best one we got. No, no law, no government will be perfect until he returns. And until he returns, the common law is the best one we got. So we better get to it. You can in America. You can be sovereign and a citizen in America. The Fed said it a million times. See, they want you to think being an oxymoron is wrong. But here, the citizens are the sovereign. They said in a million Supreme Court cases. You can in America. Yup, people don't know. If you ain't never been out the country, you don't know. You can be sovereign and be a citizen. See, what a citizen means to us is not what a citizen means to everybody in the world. See, the word citizen means national to the state. Yeah, I know what the definitions say. I'm telling you what the courts have said of the states. Trust me, I got 20 today. I uploaded, I believe there's 27 law dictionaries in total on Patreon today. I got all the law dictionaries. It ain't a law dictionary I can't get. But here in America, the word citizen means national. And because we're not talking about federal things don't apply to us. So when they say citizen, they're only talking about federal things because that's all they want you to think about. But most of y'all didn't know the common law of England was the real law until an hour ago. So we keep using their definitions in a commercial context. Nope, we don't speak commercialese here. We speak the common law of England. So the feds have said for years, and uh, and the states have said for years, the people are sovereign, and the people in the states are called citizens. They can participate, they cannot participate, but we can't take away their rights because of where they are domiciled, which is a state of the union, not a federal territory, not a district. Yes, all but one. But if you join the Patreon, that's different than buying a book. Look, I'll read them to you. Let's go to citizenship. See, you got to be able to prove this stuff to a jury, right? It sounds real good. Some random black guy on the internet talking about, oh, well, it's supposed to be about Timberline, right? Sound real good. Let's go to citizenship. I don't know where it's at. The feds deleted it. No, I'm just kidding. Citizenship. Let's go to oldest to new. Let's see, where we at? Where we at? Oh, this is a nasty case. This is a federal case. They said the Privileges and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment neither does not incorporate the Bill of Rights nor protects all the rights of individual citizens. It protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the United States. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. Why? Because the states protect their own rights based on their state citizenship. We read it earlier. The people of New York, the citizens of New York, are sovereign. Where's the case at? I'm looking for a specific case. Supreme Court of New York. This ain't what I'm looking for, but it helps. My bad. Need to add this to the North Carolina collection. And boom. The Supreme Court of North Carolina said has been transferred to or from one man to the collective body of he who was subject to the king is now a citizen of the state. So the sovereignty went to the citizen of the state in North Carolina. So that's not the one I'm looking for. This is good too. They said, look, as a fundamental right belonging to all under a free government, you are incapable of impairment. Your rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. This is a fundamental right inherent in state citizenship. But that's not what I'm looking for either. It was about sovereign immunity. Let me see. They said, this is it's a pretty popular case. They said uh, every citizen is a constituent of that sovereignty. Let me see. Immunity. A joint constituent in that sovereignty. Boom, here we go, I think. Let's see. Let's see. Here we go. Uh, it's good. I'm gonna read it. But boom, there we go. Chisholm versus Georgia. At the Revolution, the sovereignty devolved on the people. They are truly the sovereigns of the country, but they are sovereigns without subjects. Have none to govern but themselves. The citizens of America are equal as fellow citizens and as joint tenants in the sovereign. There you go. They called them citizens. They called them sovereign and they called them citizens in the same sentence. They got this thing called, I forgot where I put it, but they used to call it I'm an American Day. And they said, yeah, this is I got some stuff on here. I got over 1,000 pieces of information on here. They said I got this thing called I'm an American Day. They said this is for all the sovereign citizens who have the right to govern themselves. See, they used to tell the truth. I'm an American Day. See, now they use that word against us like it's a bad thing. Oh, it was supposed to be. Dang it, I don't know where it's at. State sovereignty. Let's see. Citizenship. See, when I first started the Patreon, I didn't tag anything specific. So it's a lot of stuff that, dang, I've been trying to find it. Like I said, I told y'all. Told y'all. I can't find it. I can find it, but it'll take time. But it was called, you could probably Google it. It's called I'm an American Day. They said, dang it, I want to find it now. I'm an American. Oh, here we go. Search. Sovereign. I'll just type that phrase in. Look at this, man. I got some nasty stuff. I be forgetting I got a law book from these people, and they said that New York is as sovereign as Japan. Illinois is as sovereign as Russia. New Hampshire is as sovereign as Guatemala. Oh man, they just lie to us every day. Oh yeah, I got so many law books that say this. Yeah, yeah, the common law of sovereign immunity, a principle, a common law principle that the king can do no wrong. And they said this had establishing an exempt status of sovereigns within their own jurisdictions. See, it's so much stuff. You'll be lying, bro. Point blank. I'm an American. Dang, I want to find it so bad, but it ain't gonna show up. It don't show up until I end the live, and then oh, there it is. Let me see. There was another thing I got. I got another book. It says the state can the state can be bound in ways that its own people cannot be bound. They said the people as states claimed for themselves in 1776 that we are sovereign. And they said the state government is not sovereign, nor is any citizen by himself sovereign. But they said that by the sovereign state, we mean we citizens collectively within our established boundaries, this community of people, we are alone who are possessed of the power to create or to abandon. Yeah, we collectively. So I've never said that we individually are sovereign. But dang, I got that. I got it. It was called I'm an American Day. Just Google it. Somebody Google I'm an American Day sovereign. Was it under the citizen? I don't remember now. I looked in the citizens one, but I can't find it. I don't know if I put it in another one by accident. And I'm also not good at naming stuff. And then another thing is I may have just put the screenshot and copy and paste and then uh, oh well, can't find it. What else? Somebody, I'm sure you can. What else? What else? What else? What other states? What other states? What else? What else? What else? What other states? What other states? It's called Constitutional Day. What else? What else? I never finished what? Somebody said statutes and codes they create. I said, no, it's limited. Yeah, that's it. I don't know what else to say. Let's see. See what I want to talk about. Wisconsin, Maine, Magna Carta process. That's a good case. I thought that book I was talking about the other day was seven. I think it was $700 at one time, but it's 400 now. That Due Process of Law book. I better read that book. Pay a lot of money for that book. New York, New York. What states? Give me some states. I know y'all leaving. North Carolina. I feel like I've read it, but I do keep stuff like I found that one case, independent of all laws. Let me see, jurisprudence on common law. Who is that? That's the look. North Carolina. Did I add it? I didn't add it. Independent of all laws. Let me go find it again. All right. Supreme Court of North Carolina said is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by them, by his fellow men without his consent. I have the law of corporations. We go to the law of corporations. Go to the feds. And we got corporations. Corporations. All right. So let's go to corporations. Oh, this is nasty. I got a lot of stuff. I be forgetting I got this stuff. Boy, everybody get to reading on here. Let's do this. this. We'll make a one, two, three, four, and five. Okay. North Carolina Supreme Court says that every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. On July 4th, 1776, not everybody who is British or English wanted to be a part of the United States of America. They also were not obligated to go back to England in order to participate with the royal crown. Why? Because the crown, at the end of the day, is a corporation, right? People say it all the time. The United States is a federal corporation. Okay, great. What does that mean? What did it mean to an English person, English man or woman that said, yeah, I'm not down with this United States of America stuff? Okay, well, they got to mind their own business and keep living their life. They didn't. Now I don't know every circumstance, but a lot there's cases that go over this that say, okay, well, and they're neither a citizen of Britain or the United States of America anymore. They just get to be. You're not bound by any institution formed by his fellow man without consent, but you are still bound or dependent on those laws prescribed by nature. Don't put your hands on nobody. Don't take nobody's stuff. Don't damage nobody's property. Right? Those are. You, I talk about this all the time. The Republican form of government. Okay, well that was based on the first 10 books of the Bible. The first 10 books of the Bible didn't have a government. They certainly didn't have a corporation. There was no such thing as the United States of Israel or whatever they would have been called. They said they didn't become Israel, the state of Israel, until the 40s or the 60s or whatever. Okay, why? Because everybody's independent of all this stuff. You don't all of this stuff is fiction. None of this. I mean, at the end of the day, if we really peel back every layer, okay, well, there's not a place called Mississippi. It sounds cool. We believe it, but it's not really. It's just a piece of land. Peel it back at the end of the day. It don't have no name. Virginia don't have no name. Somebody may think it's Virginia. Sure. They put up a sign that says Virginia, welcome to Virginia. Okay, but what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. Either you believe you're a part of it or you don't. The laws of nature still apply at the end of the day, but it's all fictitious. Actually, I learned this today. There's a guy, I guess he's a philosopher or whatever. His name is Alan Watts. Alan Watts said concerning the field of forces. Now, this is a little weird. I'm not gonna, but he said that nothing acts of itself. He said there is no such thing as an agent. He said you do what you want to do. I was thinking about this today. I was like, these people going around harassing Americans, talking about they magically owe them. Well, nobody told them to do this stuff because there is no law concerning the T word, right? Okay, so what happens? This guy named Alan Watts said there's no such thing as an agent. So an agent may come up to you and say, I'm on behalf of, yeah, they do that to escape liability. But when you peel back the fiction, No, you showed up and started harassing me. I've never seen you in my life. You mean I owe you? I've never heard of you people. You're not in the Constitution, and you think because you come on behalf of something he said there's no such thing as an agent. There's no such thing as, "Well, I got a badge and some handcuffs." Well, that doesn't mean anything. Either you're harassing me or bothering me, or I created an injured party. There's no other way life can go. Either you harassed me over some fake words on a fake piece of paper, or I created an injured party of which I am supposed to answer for. That's really it. You can say you're the sheriff or whoever. It doesn't matter who you think you are. There's no such thing as an agent. Every man is independent of all laws, all of them, except those prescribed by nature. That's it. That's what you're governed by. At the end of the day, even if a government does do those things, and they may do them well, but you're not bound by any institution formed by anybody without your consent. Now, again, don't want to have the consent conversation with me because we consented. Oh, but it was fraud. Right, right, right. We still participate every day, right? Okay, well, you study the law of corporations, and they say, let me see if I can find the one I'm looking for. Here, perfect. Found it. In 1808, they got some British case where they say actually they're citing an older case. That case didn't come out in 1808. That case is old. I couldn't read the original case, so I found a later translation. But this is from the Court of the King's Bench, and they said that. Let me see if I can read it right. Okay, so they said that I don't know what the case is about, but they said this judge said, "But I'm far from thinking that all the men of and in London and practicing physics were incorporated by a charter." They said the immediate grantees under the charter were the 6 persons particularly named in it. The rest were to be admitted by them. And then the phrase that I highlighted says, they were not ipso facto made members. They were first to give their consent before they became members. They could not be incorporated without their consent. So they said, as far as the law of corporations goes, you could not be a part of the corporation without your consent. The end. And then I got some other stuff about it. Let's see what else. Uh, this ain't as important, but they say the colony of Virginia was founded by the Virginia Company of London. And then they said there's a difference between Virginia and the Virginia Company of London. They said the Virginia Company was composed by merchants and the leading businessmen of London. And then they got some other stuff. Here we go. They say a corporation is ecclesiastical. Um, Here we go. Here's a great one. We can get in trouble with this one. They said each one of the okay, people say about withdrawing your consent. Withdrawing your consent of what? What is because what we really want to say is that they think we're United States citizens. Okay, well, what's the evidence of a United States citizen? Or what do you think is evidence of a United States citizen? Withdrawing my consent of what? Don't use commercial language now. We talk plain. Okay, a birth certificate is not admissible in court. So what are they using to determine who is this magical citizen? Remember, we talked about it all night. The laws are based on where you're domiciled. So number is not admissible into court. Now let me get my generally out. A birth certificate is not admissible into court unless it's for the issue of insurance. A social security number is not admissible into court. There is no statute requiring an SSN, a social security number for anyone. It doesn't exist. So what's this evidence? What am I withdrawing? Because you only have to withdraw something that's valid. Because if it was consent, then I created the birth certificate, but I didn't create no birth certificate. I surely didn't create no social security number. Now I did go to the DMV. See, we was doing good. We had 25, then we start telling the truth again, and then it shrank. Now I did go to the DMV, and I did go to the dealership and get a car. Me, us. So there are things I did that are valid, and there are things that are not admissible into court because they can get the guy at the dealership and say, "Yeah, I gave him that car, sign all those papers," and then they can get the lady at the DMV and say, "Yep, he waited for 3 years, he didn't get the right papers. He left and came back and brought the right papers. He can," but they can't get the. Well, you were a child, you were a baby. They can't put a birth certificate into evidence. That's not admissible. They can put that driver's license application into evidence. Why don't you get a car? A car for what? What do I need a car for? What do I need a car for? Why you don't get a car, bro? For what? What do I need a car for? Give me 5 reasons why I need a car. Get around. Where am I going? To get around where? Confused about his question. To get around where? Where would I be going in this car? See, we like the sovereignty thing. We love our oh, the people of New York are sovereign, the people of Texas are sovereign. Until it's time to do sovereign things. You know what sovereign really means? It means personal responsibility for all your actions, and that you're 100% liable for all of your actions. And when we really start breaking that down, that's why most people don't want to sign up for sovereignty. They would rather let this fictitious world of convenience and ease really, because you know what it means to be sovereign? It means I have to read all these uninteresting law books all day. That's what it means to be sovereign. How do you get out of the contract with the DMV? Stop driving cars, return the state ID and driver's license. There you go. It means I have to waste half my paychecks on buying law books. because I have to be able to prove everything that I'm saying. But I work 85 miles from home. Working 85 miles from home is a choice. You choose to do that or you choose not to do that. See, this is why I get in trouble because we have to admit, okay, well, we're not prepared to live without the system. That's what we're really I had to I admitted it. I'm good. I'm clean. I know I can't make it yet. I'm on my way, but I can't make it without the system completely yet. And we have to admit, okay, well, because we work 85 miles from home, well, that's a choice. We chose to do that. Nobody told us to do that. We do that because we make a good amount of Federal Reserve notes, and we don't have community, and we don't know the law. Like, those are things that get us in trouble. So it would almost be better for you to stay in the system until you're prepared to leave. See, I'm prepared to live without a car. I don't have a car. I'm prepared not to have a state ID. And also, this sovereign thing means that you go without certain things. That's part of personal responsibility. 'Cause these people, you see them on YouTube, they got plenty of videos. People make all the time. They get their windows breaking out, they get tickets all the time. Why? Because they don't have no money, because it takes personal responsibility to be sovereign or to be on the journey to sovereignty. Because as soon as you go without a license or registration or insurance and you get in a car, you create an injured party and you can't pay for it immediately or rectify the issue immediately without them going to the police, oh yeah, you're going to jail. You're going to jail, and they're gonna give you the maximum. See, it's great to be in front of a jury when you're innocent, but you're not going to explain that you were still participating in the system and you thought you could be free from it, and then when it came time for personal responsibility, which means to be liable for all of your actions, and you couldn't do it, oh yeah, you don't wanna explain that in front of a jury. They're gonna throw the book at you, and they have the right to, because they are the judges of the law, particular case. See, we don't like personal responsibility. That's why it ain't but 13 people watching this thing. We almost had 30 tonight. They said, "Nah, I still like Wi-Fi, video games and watching Netflix." Yeah, and those things are evil, but personal responsibility, see, they should just replace the word with sovereignty with responsibility or liable. Okay, well, then that's why they set restrictions, so that they wouldn't be liable when they took your rights. And then and then the scammer comes on the internet and say, "Oh, yeah, well, you have to do just what they're not supposed they don't have the law to own anything. We're supposed to be owning the things." Yeah, do just like the government does. The government's a corporation, so they don't really own anything, and this is the mess that we're in. Oh, yeah, it's real fun, real fun. What do you do for an ID when you need it? I have a passport for when I need an ID, but one day I will not have a passport, and I don't drive no cars. What will you have then? I won't have nothing. That'll be it. Game over. I'll be in the woods. Yeah, but you use your passport while driving a car that they have information. That's called entry. They have jurisdiction on that car. He said, "Yeah, I got my passport too, but I still drive 85 miles every day." Okay, well, you're consenting to the system. See, everybody think they got a super combo. "Oh, Imma do what nobody else has done." That video's on YouTube too. Somebody getting their windows busted out. Oh, okay, okay. My bad. Alright, no car, no license, no state ID. How do you get 85 miles to work? Oh, okay, my bad, my bad, my bad. Alright, so yep, there we go. Alright, I'm gonna read this. This is a law book about corporations. There is no status. There is no status. You can't prove there's a status. Where's the status come from? Show me in law. There's no such thing as a status. Not in the Constitution and not in the common law of England. Um, the Supreme Court of Texas said it's not a crime not to identify. I don't know if it's the Supreme Court of Texas, but it was a court in Texas. It's not a so you can't be arrested for not identifying. Let me see if I can find it. Yep. Let me see. Let me see. Yep. Who is this? Oh, this is the federal Supreme Court correcting Texas. They said to detain someone and require them to identify himself violates the Fourth Amendment because the officers lacked any reasonable suspicion to believe that the dude had engaged in criminal conduct. They said someone may you may not be punished for refusing to identify yourself. That's the United States Supreme Court. Now, you're not getting on the airplanes. Be very clear, you're not getting on their commercial airplanes, not being identified. So they really go by the Constitution, like they really are trampling on 1 and 2. No, they're not trampling on anything. We're ignorant of them. We love blaming the Constitution. Or we blame the government. We don't love blaming ourselves for allowing them. Yeah, the United States Supreme Court corrected Texas, did appeal all the way up to the federal Supreme Court, and he said the Supreme Court constitutionality of Texas con Constitution against real law, the com they are subverting it like no, they don't subvert rights. You give them up or you never that's how it works. How are they subverting your rights? Corporations, that's what we're talking about. Alright, now I'm gonna read this. This is a law book on corporations. They said each one of the states of the federal union is in effect a public corporation. So the United States is a corporation, but the state here we go. but the state was held not to be a corporation within the United States Internal Revenue laws. All the cameras? Why, where? Cameras? What? Well, where are these cameras? Are they on the highways where all the people who consent to drive are? Yes, the state government is a corporation. That's what the state constitution does. Creates a corporation. The Constitution is a commercial. That's why I told y'all the Constitution is not for us. They're, the Constitution is for them. So they say, yep, the state governments, and this is after the they say each one of the states of the federal union is a corporation. So the United States is a corporation. But the state was not held to be a corporation within the United States internal laws. Then they said the word person in a statute extends to said a state is a corporation cannot be doubted. It is a legal being capable of transacting some kind of business. Such a being is a corporation. That's the is that the federal Supreme Court or is that Indiana? Court. All right, the New York Supreme Court said that. Uh, the Supreme Court of Georgia said it's my favorite. I forgot about this. I forgot about this. Oh, look at Georgia coming through. I need to tag this on Georgia. Let me tag it. Let me tag it because I don't be tagging it. Tag New York and Georgia. New York and Georgia. New York and Georgia. Boom. Now save it. Bet. All right. That's what the Supreme Court of Georgia said. The Supreme Court of Georgia said, I am of the opinion, whoever the Supreme Court of Georgia said, I am of the opinion that Congress, talking about federal Congress, intended the term corporation as used in this act. It does not include the term state. And they said, I am unable to discover a single case in the Supreme Court or any circuit or district court of the United States where it has been decided that the term corporation includes a state. There we go. So that's in the relation to the state government, the Fed. Uh, so again, none of those cases are talking to us. See, we think we have states. We don't have no state since the Civil War. How does the state lock people up? People have state IDs. Those state IDs are evidence of your employment to this corporation. Now there was something else I was going to read. That was New York Supreme Court. All right. So that was corporation part one. Here's corporation part two. Let's see here. There we go. Ladybugs. Um, they said those bills of exchange. Where do corporations come from? Article 1 of the federal constitution says that they have the power to regulate commerce. They say they can create commerce. They said commerce already They said they regulate commerce and no preference shall be any regulation of commerce. What's a violation of the Fourth Amendment? You have a Fourth Amendment. You live in a state. Now, commerce denotes consent. Commerce is a body of private law, and you are not subject to commerce unless you participate in commerce. Commerce is not the law. Commerce is not the law of the land. Commerce is not the Commonwealth of England. Now, this is easy to say because most people have not experienced the government not actually having power to do what they think they have the power to do. So it sounds real easy as this random black guy gets on the internet and say, "Oh, well, the people are sovereign and they can't be brought into the courts without your consent." And because most people, 90% of Americans have state IDs and drive cars and believe that they are valid and believe that the government gets to tell them what they can and can't do. Let me get to where I really want to get. This ain't on nothing. You ain't hitting on nothing. I mean, ooh, that was good. Let me see. Let me see. No, no, no. Look, look, look. Oh, I read this yesterday. There was a statute. A statute is the laws and customs of a corporation. There you go. A statute is the laws and customs of a corporation. They said corporations, communities, and colleges are called civil persons. Somebody said, I'm just going to be dropping writs. Okay, well, they created the writ system and they get to control if they allow a writ to go through. What you gonna do when they don't get the writ? When they don't approve your writ? All right, let me get to the fun stuff. Let me see, a corporation cannot be served by a process outside of the state where it was created. They said a court has acquired jurisdiction over the defendant by service of a subpoena. The person of the defendant was found in the district. What happens when we encounter the police or whoever, the feds, whatever? How did they know who you were? You thought you're gonna give them some credit. How did they even know who you right? How do you become a member of that corporation? do they know who you are? Right. They don't care nothing about that red. That was trash. I'm just gonna hit them with some red. Right. How do they know who you are? How did they even get to create the case? If that's an actual injured party, they don't need all the fictions. But when they can't do nothing without that fiction. And I find very few people who willing to admit they stood in line and asked for a state ID or asked for a car at the car dealership and signed every piece of paper they gave them. One time years ago, and this is the truth, I bought a car. I was the ignorant one. I signed all the I didn't know nothing about this stuff. I signed all the papers, just like they told them, and I was out of town, and I didn't know I signed those papers, and one of those papers was a power of attorney. So whoever the dealership was, 'cause I didn't live in the town where I got the car. That was another I went out of town to buy the car, and so I worked in a different place from where I live, and where I got the car was in a whole 'nother place. And so one day I get pulled over, the dude says that my tag is out. I'm like, "What do you mean my tag is out? My tag should be valid for 2 years." And he's like, "No, no, no, the tag's out." I'm like, "That's crazy. That's not possible." He actually said, and this is the issue, he actually said, "Well, technically, you have a new tag, but it's not on this car." You're like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" So he gives me the ticket, and I'm like, "Hey, can you go by" I'm calling some friends, "Hey, can you go by my place and see if there's a tag and something?" They're like, "Yeah," and they go by and they're like, "Yeah, there's a tag here." I'm like, "Who the heck gave you a tag? What do you mean there's a tag? Somebody." And I called the dealership. I don't even remember how I knew to call the dealership. They were like, "Yeah, we you we renew your tag every year." I'm out of town. I don't work where I live. You just renew my tag, and I don't have that tag on my car, and you're freaking renewing and sending tags of places that I don't have that tag. And they're like, "Oh, that was my fault." Why? Because I filled out papers in ignorance. It wasn't an evil thing, but people wonder how they issues with the corporation. How do they even know who you are? How do the cop know that I had a tag? And okay, well, I gave permission or I participated in something by my consent, and I can get mad all I like. If my car shows up on the cop's computer, that cop believes he can do whatever he wants, whether I think it's right or wrong. If I showed up on the computer, that's as simple as that. If you show up on the computer, that's proof that they have jurisdiction. That's proof that you can. People say, "Oh, the government's violating my rights." Are they? Or did you give them away? Um, they said the court has acquired jurisdiction over the defendant. Who is this? Federal case. Yeah, the District Court of Nevada. They said the district or the court has acquired jurisdiction over the defendant by service of the subpoena. The person was found in the district. There's a difference between somebody who was in the district and somebody who was not in the district. Um, this ain't it either. Where is it at? They got this thing. Um, corporation. That wasn't what I was looking for either. Corporation. Foreign agents. There we go. Perfect. 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 I missed- Here we go. Here we go. They said there are two classes of corporations. Corporation exercises government powers as an agent, or a private corporation organized for the protection of protective associations supported by insurance. Here we go. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. Oh yeah, here we go. All right. So they say uh, these things, these corporations. So they say there's two type of corporations. The first, where a corporation exercises governmental power. Right. Those are the things explicitly in the Constitution. Right. Okay. Then they say there's another type of corporation that is private, organized for the protection, or for yeah, for the protection of private things, supported by insurance companies. Okay. Bet. They said these are not public charities, although sometimes they help outsiders. They said, in this issue, in this world of a corporation, a servant represents his master in the performance of an operative or mechanical act in the service, not resulting in the creation of a voluntary primary obligation. And then they say, but which may result in intentionally or inadvertently in the breach of an existing one. Like, all right, I don't know what that means. Cool, cool, cool. Here we go. They said an agent makes an offer or promises, and then a servant performs operative acts not intended to induce the third persons to change their legal relations. This is all within the world of commerce. They said this agent has to take account of the mind and the will of the one he seeks to influence. They said a servant will of one of the persons, namely of his master, whose existing obligations and duties he is to perform. They say an agent may cause damage by inducing a person to act. I thought that was it, but that wasn't it. They said there are legal obligations and then there are substituted obligations. They said the obligation to pay damages for not fulfilling a contract. They said the primary obligations are imposed either by one's voluntary undertaking. Usually, the voluntary undertaking originates in an offer or a representation made to other persons and acted upon by him. They say thus a contract imposed an obligation which could not have existed but for the obligor's voluntary act. How do they know who you are? They said this obligation that they think you owe would not have existed if it was not for your voluntary act. So they said the problem is reduced in its simplest terms. Number one, in creating or attempting to create a voluntary primary obligation, in committing a breach of primary antecedent obligations and thus giving rise to secondary obligations. They said this authority is conferred upon by the will of the constituent. Now, let me read the sentence correctly. They said this authority is conferred upon by the will of the constituent upon a fiction of identity. By what? Upon a fiction of identity. They said the authority is given by the fiction of identity. They said upon the fiction of identity, this progresses from a status to a contract. And they say the relation has come to be mainly a consensual one. This is not a case. This is a law on corporations. They say now there's a new legal relationship between the constituent and the representative to impose voluntary primary obligations, to disturb existing relations, or to cause a breach of existing primary obligations. They say it twice, to create legal relations or to disturb existing legal relations. They say this is the creation of obligations. This is how they create a reality where you believe you have to do what they tell you. They oh, I see, I get ahead of myself. I never read the next sentence. The next sentence says, "This is the law governing a master and a servant." They said the law governing master and servant has to do with the breach of existing obligations. They said the subject matter is contract. Everything that I'm reading you is on my Patreon. If you're on Patreon, just search corporation. They said, who is this? The Supreme Court of Massachusetts said a corporation are not liable for negligence of their officers and agents. That's right. That's where commerce comes from. Who are the merchants? This is all private law. This is not American law. They say when you go to the DMV, you're not doing something Americans are supposed to be doing. They said they're creating a master and servant relationship. They said when you show up at the DMV, the roles get reversed. And you're no longer telling them what to do anymore. They're telling you what to do. So again, when the Supreme Court of North Carolina says that every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow man without his consent. I'm not saying you should do anything or you're supposed to do anything. Either you want to participate or you don't want to participate. Either you went to the DMV and you want to keep going to the DMV, or you don't go to the DMV no more. They said they don't get any power that you think they have except upon the fiction of identity. That's what they said. They said they don't even. They said they can't even do nothing. If you ain't on the computer, they don't. And there's no injured party. They don't even know. What do we do? Call the supervisor. Call the supervisor. Oh well, he's not showing up on the computer. Oh, just one second, sir. Can you give us a social security? You got the social. Give me six numbers of your social security number. Oh yeah, the Constitution says I'm not allowed to be a witness against myself. I'm sorry. I don't answer questions. Sorry. Yeah, where you coming from? Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Where you headed? I just need. What's your zip code? I just need a zip code or an address. Right. Yeah. Well, the Constitution says right, that you are not allowed to be compelling me to be a witness against myself. The Supreme Court says make no statement to the police for any reason. They said don't say nothing. Why are you talking to them? Who told you to talk to them? But that goes for when you go and stand in line at the DMV and be a witness against yourself and say, I would like a. Now, that sounds real easy, right? But we got to go to work on Monday, don't we? And they require state IDs to go to work, don't they? So we think they don't. But so just because I say all this stuff, don't mean we can just, some of y'all can just go do it tomorrow. Because if you go return your state ID tomorrow, you may not be able to get a bank account or a job. You may be homeless. People do this every day. People think they just gonna exit the system and they end up homeless another day. They don't have no real life skills. Every homeless person you see, there's nothing wrong with being homeless. There's nothing wrong with not participating in the system. But if you don't have no skills to take care of yourself, see, back in the day, they they had skills. See, we have two problems. The problem is the system's gonna fail. All of it's gonna crash. And it don't matter if you've obeyed all the rules or not, because it's gonna crash. And you still gotta be able to eat, and you still gotta be able to hunt, and you still gotta be able to figure out how to get shelter. So you can participate in the system. Sure, do what you wanna do. I can't tell you what to do. But either way, either you obey all the rules or you don't obey all the rules. Either way, it's going down. And when it goes down and you don't have no life skills, well, none of this law stuff will matter if you can't go eat. So you can study the common law to your heart's content, but when there's no electricity and no Wi-Fi and there's no grocery store to go to or a gas station and no ATM machine and they don't and your Federal Reserve notes aren't worth anything, what does it mean? It don't mean nothing. If you can't go hunt and you can't go eat and you don't have shelter and you can't bathe yourself, this is what they say is deeper than rap. See, it sound real good. All the people are sovereign. They got bound by statutes. Yeah, that was in a day where they could hunt. They built their own they know how to ride horses. I'm reading you old cases. It's not when they in Teslas. They didn't like that. Do I teach how to do it? Dude, I'm on the internet too. We're all in trouble. I'm teaching it right now. You gotta figure out how to go hunt and build a log cabin and go find a water stream and figure out how to clean water and learn how to clean chickens and learn how to cook a squirrel on top of a garbage can. Like, what do you mean? I don't. We're all in the same situation here. I'm not rich. I'm paying no money anyway. The Patreon is $5. That don't pay no bills. Yeah, we're all gonna be laughing around the fire in the garbage can. I went to Fresno one time. There's homeless people everywhere. They got this little garbage can with the fire coming up over it. I said, "Yeah, that's gonna be us. We laughing about the good old days. Laughing about things. We try to find a squirrel or a rabbit. If you're in New York, you'd probably be okay. It's better figure out how to cook it." There was this deer. I gotta figure it out. There was this deer. I think it was in North Carolina. They had like they passed the statute that these deer breed so much that you had like weekend, they said like, "Hey, nobody drive on this main highway because there's so many deer that were like breeding and they spread so fast that there was like a mandatory hunting week. Like, like they had to get them out because there was so many. I was like, I need to know what type of deer that was. So when stuff starts breaking down, we can breed those deer and they'll just be everywhere. Yeah. So yep, that's pretty much it. Corporations. It's all they say. I got a case. I can't find it. But they say governments have always been corporations. That's all they've ever known. They said they create fictions. That's what I learn. That's all I do. Let you take one antlered deer per season. See, we don't even know how to clean meat no more. Clean meat. Some people do, but you know what I mean. Not on a grand scale. Not these Wi-Fi. You're doomed. Doomed. They don't know how to fire a rifle. Nothing. Yep, but this is what commerce has done. Commerce system, and the system will fail regardless. It's intended to fail. It's designed to fail. It's a curse. Commerce come from? It comes from a group of people called the Canaanites. We're cursed. So their system is designed to fail. Everywhere it went, they're created. So I mean, seriously, people who don't travel, go to Europe. Horrible, horrible, horrible. You go to all the. They say Rome looks like They say Spain, they say France, all of those places where they come over here and act like they had such prestige. Oh, places look trash. You go to England, England look like trash, bro. Trash. Because that's what commerce does. It creates destruction. It makes people dependent on the system. Then they raise the prices of things and then they don't increase wages. And then you have no other choice but to rely on government assistance. See, we make, and I mean, we're both equally wrong. We make fun of people, Section 8 and rely and think they're getting off on the system by being on Section 8, but people who use credit cards and love the system and credit and all these other things, we're equally are wrong. They equally will result in the same action. Both the people who think they're the upper or middle class, whatever that means, and the people who think they're on the lower class, well, they both will be dependent on the government and the whole system. So it won't matter. That's really people think they're, oh well, I'll just no, it's their system. If they put it on, if they put it in the stocks, or if they put it in an ETF, or if they put it in crypto, if they put it on, I tell people this all the time, even if you put it in gold and silver, okay, well, you ain't gonna have nowhere to go with it. The whole system will fail, the entire system. As long as we're dependent on their electricity, that's really at the root of it. As long as we're dependent on their electricity. Like, we really don't know. We're literally dependent on electricity for our entire existence. People don't know how to clean clothes without a washing machine. People don't know how to preserve food without without a refrigerator. People don't know how to get from A to B without anything electric. People don't even know how to read maps no more. They didn't need all those things to survive. Convenience, that's the word. They didn't need all those things to survive. You don't need all those things to survive. You only need those things if you're gonna stay in the system. You only need these fictions if you're gonna be in the system. On that. So yeah. So you gotta figure out a water source. I posted this thing not too long ago. They say you can just go find some land nobody else has been on. And as long as you occupy it, where's it at? Go to land patents. They say you can just go find a piece of land. If you don't have no real skills, yeah. Yeah, you're screwed. You're not because there won't be a job to go to. I don't think people realize that. Like people there aren't jobs to go to now. People complain about jobs. I mean, I'm talking about on TikTok all day. Oh, this 2,000 people got laid off today. This 20,000 big corporation got laid off. All this company went out there. Okay, well, there won't be a job to go to. Once you get that in your head, you're like, oh, okay, well, it's all got everybody can't they can't they're not gonna get let everybody have a job. You don't when you can't get a job and your bills are still magically due. Okay, well, I have no choice. If you wanna y'all remember that movie? It was Captain America. They were on they were on a train. And they ate like these black squares, but it was like it was like cockroach. It was like a cockroach bar or something like that. It was like a black bar. I don't know the name of the movie, but that movie was it was hilarious. But that's I mean, that's essentially what's coming. Civilization was on the train. The dude who played Captain America, and they said they had to pass out these black bars. That's what they had to eat. If you wanna stay on the system, you wanna stay on the choo-choo train, they got them black bars for you to eat. So, there won't be a job to go to one day. Like, I went to Cuba one time, and I was like you go around downtown, I think it's Havana, you're like, Cuba's an amazing island, you should just go live in the wilderness there, and just be with your independent communities, like, you live in Cuba? Okay, well, we're going fishing every day, that's our job, we gotta eat. We're gonna fish, we're gonna grow whatever seed we can get, and we're gonna get chickens. They still got chickens today, well, that's what we do, but the people who stay in the cities have to rations every couple weeks of whatever foreign governments give it to them. They get that little loaf of bread. They still got universities, for whatever reason. I'm talking about the smartest dudes you know, taxi cab, because there's no job to go to. Tourism, that's the only form of commerce that they have. So, yep, there won't be a job to go to today. So, yep, somebody said we're kinda screwed. Yep, got nothing but bad news, sorry. Good luck. Uh, oh, that's what I was gonna say. They say you can just find a piece of land. There we go. Yeah, what is this? Yeah, they said standing upon land is the natural symbol of possessing it. Actual possession of a piece of land is evidenced by occupancy. They said, who is this? The Supreme Court of Utah said actual possession is immediate occupancy of the party. And this is another thing. No, it's called we don't understand the distinction between how the courts speak and how we are to, for less of a better explanation, interpret. So the courts and the legislator and the executive branch, they can only speak commercialism. So they only speak commercial language, but that don't mean they're talking to us. They're just that's just how they have to speak. They are a corporation, right? So we have to read this stuff rightly. Who was that? Did I say Utah, the Supreme Court of Utah? Oh, that was New York. The Supreme Court of New York said actual possession is immediate occupancy. And then the Supreme Court of Utah said the same thing. The Supreme Court of California said, uh, they said they don't rely on the statutes of the state. They said, but by actual possession, meaning it is evidenced by occupancy. So the word's not even actual possession. The word is occupancy. Well, we're not talking about if somebody else already owns it. We're talking about actual possession. They said actual possession is evidenced by this is the Supreme Court of Alabama. The Supreme Court of Alabama said that actual possession is evidenced by its own existence. They said in American law, a party may rely on actual possession. Court of California. Yep. Where is any land that nobody owns? Like 80% of the people don't realize most of the states are not occupied. And people don't the people who have never been outside the country, and I'm not saying that like I'm just telling you, people don't know the size of your states are bigger than most countries. Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, they're bigger than most countries. New York, huge. And we think because we're blinded by commerce because it, it takes like in Texas, Texas is huge. You can get from one end of Texas to the other in like 10 or 12 or 13 hours. Well, yeah, but if there were no cars, it would take you weeks to get from one end of Texas to the other. See, this is what happens when we've been blinded by commerce. We think, oh, we think people are everywhere. No, there are people nowhere. Most people live outside of a major city, and that's what they want. They want to be able to control you from these major cities. You'd be surprised where there's nobody. They say in Kansas, don't nobody live. People live by Kansas City, which is on the border of Missouri and Kansas. They said that's where people live at. Everything out there. I seen a house last week, no lie, for like 25 grand because don't nobody live out there. Now, you probably wouldn't want to live out there. They got tornadoes that are like super crazy. Yep, West Virginia's the same. Don't nobody live in West Virginia. State's huge. They say the middle of Pennsylvania, nobody lives. See, we believe through commerce and all these fictions that we there's not I can't say too much because I'll get in trouble for real. But like there's not enough of them against us. You can just I can't say that. We'll get in trouble. But just understand, they just say you can just go possess some land. Now, I'm not telling you to do nothing. I didn't say none of this. But they said actual possession is just you going and occupying. What is all this commerce about? It's taking away skills that we used to have, and then when the system fails, oh well, we don't have those skills anymore. So when it fails, you could just go actually possess some land and build your little cabin, have your little trout stream, go get your two chickens on the way out into the woods, and then figure out how to clean water. There you go. That's it. They used to know how to build cabins. The only people that's got that skill now are like Amish people. So yeah, they said again, this is the Supreme Court. I don't have the Supreme Court of Indiana. I just found what I don't. I don't always have every state for everything. But Supreme Court of California said in American law, they just rely on actual possession. Just go find some land. I'm not telling you that. I'm just saying what they say. Don't say, oh, the black guy on there, there's in there. I tell you nothing. They said the word occupy. Who is this? The Supreme Court said the word occupy is more extensive than the word possession. They said by occupying, you signify actual possession. They said the plaintiff has got to show that he had actual possession, and that is signified by occupancy. They said this is evidenced by occupation, a substantial enclosure, and by cultivation, right? You build a log cabin there, you got some fruits and trees growing and some vegetables growing, and some chickens that are laying eggs. They've been laying eggs forever. You can see the chicken on the ground and all that. Okay, well, he had actual possession. You've been here for how long? Oh, I've been out here. He got a crazy look at his hair in years. Okay, he probably been occupied. Yep, they said by cultivation and appropriate usage. What was this? New York. Look at New York. New York said every person shall be entitled to actual possession. Go get some. Now, if you don't know how to live in the snow, good luck. Colorado, you got the right of occupancy. They said, "Oh, there we go." I like it when they throw a common law sentence in. They said, "This right existed as of that common law. The application of right of occupancy, as it is understood, existed in Colorado." I don't have any. I'm so sorry. So, yeah, that's it. Just go find you some. All right, I'm finna get off of here. My battery's about to die. What's tomorrow? Saturday? All right, we'll try it again tomorrow sometime.